right, hi everyone, welcome back.
Hi.
Okay, first off, I have new name tags for you. Those have a very small font. I can't read them, so I got a nice big font. So you can throw out your old ones and just hold on to these new ones. And again, if you have a name that you want to be pronounced a certain way or a nickname, I really don't care what I call you. Just write it in big letters with a nice marker so I can see it. I have the photo seating chart, but I find it's much more personal. I can just look you in the eye and say, you know, hi Jim, or hi Sally, whatever it is. It's much better than, you know, this little business. That's why I like these name cards. Second, we are going to be using the iClicker reef system, which I think you all said you have. Ooh, I gotta mute this. Ah, there it is. Sorry. My computer's talking to me because I'm actually live streaming it. This is a very cool app, which I think all of you have. So first of all, have all of you downloaded the app? Has anyone not downloaded it? Okay, are there any hands? Okay, so the way this works is when you log in, you select your school, South Texas, you select your course, and you go to Prop2, and then you select me, Blackman, right? This is me, my name right there. At that point, you can check attendance. At the beginning of class, I'm going to have this attendance running. I'm going to leave it open for another minute or two because this is the first time, but generally, I'm going to turn it off at 10:40. You're either here or you're not. If you don't check in, you're absent. So please be on time. I see that there are 44 people checked in. So what's going on?
It doesn't show you the option. You have to let it follow your location.
Try logging, closing the app, and try coming back in. I think I had a setting on that it limits it by location.
Yeah.
And I disabled that. So try coming out and coming back in again. See if it works. I'll wait a minute. I want to make sure everyone gets this one right. This is a lot easier than passing around the roll sheet. I very much just like the roll sheet. Yes, sir.
Close the session on the app personally if you've been checked in or not.
Yeah.
It doesn't show session one.
It says it told me it was successful, but it, I don't.
Okay. So I've had 49 check-in. We're gonna get this right, I promise. We'll make this work once and we'll get it every time. So Antonella, SA, okay. Delilah, David, Valerie, Natalie.
I'm here.
Yeah. You logged in?
No, I can't. I'm trying over and over again.
All right. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave this attendance open the entire class, just for today. And if for whatever reason by the end of class you can't get it, you'll come up and work with me. I don't want to waste too much time on this. Okay? Yeah.
I think the problem is it doesn't notify us if we have checked in. Because on my clicker it just doesn't say anything, so I don't know what the status is.
So the names up here, and I'm going to move on right after this one, are the people who haven't checked in. SA, Delilah, David, Valerie, and Natalie. Everyone else is checked in. Okay? This will go much more smoothly after today, I promise. Yes, ma'am.
Just to be clear, when we first get on the app, it says we have one recorded absence. Like, is that just because we didn't have it on?
Yeah, I did a test yesterday, so that one won't count.
Okay.
In fact, a couple of you tried checking into my test session yesterday, which was very creative. I did it from home, just to see if it worked. All right. Let's move on from this. All right. Fancy technology, right? So our topic to study is adverse possession. And we discussed in the last class the 4 elements necessary to acquire property through adverse possession. There must be an entry. The time spent there must be both open and notorious so that the owner of record is aware of the squatting. It has to be continuous, right? You have to be there for the requisite period of time. That period may vary depending on whether or not you have your paperwork, what's called color of title. The 4th element, which is called the claim of right, is your state of mind while you're engaging in the act of squatting. We studied in different jurisdictions, different states of mind are required. Some states require you to be hostile. That is, you are saying, I know I don't own it, but I want to get it. And in some states, you have to have a good faith state of mind, which is, well, I thought it was mine, my bad. And the modern trend in a number of states is it's irrelevant what your state of mind is so long as you're squatting it, which basically reads the fourth element out of adverse possession. That was last class. Today's class, we are going to move on to a slightly different topic. The mechanics of how adverse possession works in a practice. What you're going to see with these cases is complicated scenarios. The first case, the case from the Hood Canal, it's pretty complicated to follow. But this is where adverse possession sort of meets the road, where it actually comes into fruition. So I want to start, and I'm going to try it again, to do a question from last week's reading. What I want to do with this clicker thing, if it works, if it doesn't, I'll drop it. But to review from the last class and make sure you actually remembered and took away what we were supposed to study, I'm going to try and include a reading from last week. So if you turn to page 163, please. Question number 2. Okay. Question number 2. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can start a polling session. Okay. Oh, I see. All right, I'm gonna have to end the attendance. Don't worry, I'll fix it later. If you didn't get marked in, I'll check you later. It's not letting me. Oh, I see. It won't let me answer a question while the attendance center is active. I see. Okay. 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 So now I start a polling session. Okay. Time, start a polling session. We're starting polling session. Here we go. Okay. So, okay, polling. I promise this will be smoother next time. I actually came to this classroom about an hour ago and I was practicing this, and it was much smoother then. I actually was. I was here. Okay. Multiple choice. Go. All right. So we want to do question number 2, and let's see. Who can read it for us? Who was the last person I called on last class? Megan, you're up next. Okay, so can you read for us question number 2, please?
2 continuous lots, 1 and 2, are owned by X and Y respectively. X and Y are not in possession. The lots are conveyed by an invalid deed from Z to A.
Ah, good. Keep going.
Who enters lot 1 and occupies it in the usual manner for the period required by the statute of limitations. Subsequently, A sues X and Y to quiet title to lots 1 and 2. What result?
Okay, so stop right there. So there are 2 separate questions here, right? The first question is A versus X, right? And the second question is A versus Y. Keep in mind that they're 2 separate lawsuits. These are 2 people with 2 claims. So the first question, people have already voted. I don't know how you vote. I haven't given you the choices yet. Change your votes. The first question is who wins, A, and A is A, or X, B. So vote A or B for the first question. They'll come, who wants to be a millionaire? If this doesn't work, I'll drop it. I want to try it out at least once. Option A wins this case. Option B, X wins. Who wins in the case of A versus X? Everyone understand? Okay, 30 people. Let's go for another 2 seconds. And the reason why we do this is reinforcement, right? Because if I say show of hands, people, I don't want to raise my hand, whatever. Here, you're locking yourself in, and you'll see in a minute who's right and wrong. This is a very good way of giving you feedback immediately. All right, 45 people, 47. I'll stop it in another 5 seconds. Okay, close enough. Okay, results. Ah! Megan, what'd you vote?
A.
Okay, why'd you pick A?
Because they occupied it and then they stayed there for the period of time.
Okay, okay. But what's the key factor there? Why does A win here?
Because the true owners didn't have possession.
Okay. Well, look at the question, right? Okay. So basically, most people voted A. Okay? Who put B? Okay, why'd you say B?
If it's owned by two separate lots and you occupy one of the lots but not the other, then you don't, even if you have color and title, you don't have adverse possession for all of them.
Ah, anyone else put B or X, I should say? Yes.
Well, I just went off of you can't transfer an invalid deed.
Oh, okay. Let's do the second question, right? Question number 2. Who wins? A, which is versus, right? A versus Y. That is, A is A and option B is Y. And I'm going to answer who's right, who's wrong in a minute. A or Y? Okay. I will get a sense of how long it takes to get most of you voting. By the way, these aren't graded. I don't care what you put, but this is for your own knowledge. This is not part of your grade in any sense. It's purely for your own instant gratification. I'll give another few seconds. A or Y, who wins? Okay, close enough. Okay, let's see the results here. Ah, so the numbers changed here, right? Is that Robert?
Yes.
Robert, what'd you put?
B.
Okay, why did you put B?
Well, A is occupying the first lot, which is owned by X, so he doesn't even go on.
Ah,
lot one.
so what element of adverse possession is lacking in the second question? There are 4 elements, right? What element's lacking here?
There's no entry.
Entry. Everyone see the difference? Go back to the question. I'm going to close these results. Close these results, okay? A enters which lot?
1.
The first lot, which belongs to X. Does A enter the second lot that belongs to Y?
No.
No. So entry is an essential element. So when you get these sorts of questions in the exam, pay attention. Don't just assume, oh, he occupied it. You have to enter it. Now, Jesse raised a good point, right? How do you adversely possess land that's shared by 2 different people? The lots, even though they're contiguous, right, that means they're next to each other, they're separate pieces of property. And each piece of property has its own bundle of sticks. So you can squat against lot number 1, but not lot number 2, okay? And Simone says, well, how can you transfer property on a bad deed? In this class, I promise you, 100%, everyone in the final exam is a crook. Everyone selling property is selling something they do not own. I promise you right now, right? Do not assume that simply because a person sells a piece of land, that they actually have title to it. In fact, you should probably assume the opposite, that they're selling stuff they don't own. So there's nothing wrong in this question, was it Z, with Z giving invalid deed, right? In fact, we'll study later in the semester, if you get an invalid deed and you acquired it in good faith, it may still be good, right? You may actually have a right to the land. It's a little tricky, but you'll get there later. Okay? All right, any question? Yes, Jesse.
If lots 1 and 2 were previously owned by the same person, you have color title under 1 and 2, you only occupy 1 to fulfill the requirements. You still get all of it though, right?
No. But that's the key point. Lots 1 and 2, you have black acre and white acre. Even though they're owned by the same person, they're still separate lots. Right? What we studied last class was mentioned briefly is the doctrine of constructive possession, right? That's where, let's say, lot number 1 is 100 acres, and you only occupy 50 of those acres. Under the doctrine of constructive adverse possession, you can get the entirety of lot 1, but that doesn't get you across the borderline to lot number 2. That make sense, Jesse?
Yeah.
Good. Any other questions on this one? Yes, sir, Chester.
So the answer is A and B?
Well, in the first case, A wins, right? And the second case, Y wins. Make sense? Yep, exactly right. And I think that's more or less the class reflected, 25-75 both ways. Anything else? Okay, so honest, do you like this clicker thing? Is this good?
Yeah.
Okay, I will make it work a little bit smoother. This is my first time trying it. And I was literally practicing this yesterday to get as smooth as I could, and I didn't quite get it right. But I'm grateful that you indulged me for a minute. One of the things that South Texas is trying to work on very strongly is giving what's called formative assessment. Generally, the only feedback you ever receive is that in your final exam. At that point, it's too late because the class is over. So we're trying to use tools like this clicker thing to give you feedback, not like in January, but like now, immediately. And the other thing which we'll be doing is the midterm. The midterm, I grade it, but it doesn't count towards your grade unless you fail. I mean, basically you don't show up. So I haven't failed anyone in a very long time. It's happened, but show up and do a good job. Don't blow it off. But subsequent to the midterm, after the midterm, I'm going to meet with every one of you. This is a small section, which I'm grateful for. Most of my sections are 80 or 90 people. So all of you will make a 30-minute appointment with me in November at some point. I'll have an app you can select the times, but that's a way to get feedback again before your final exam, because once the final happens, it's already too late. You can come meet with me afterwards, but it's too late. So the time for that is now. All right? All right, very good. Let's move on to the first case for today, which has fairly complicated fact. It's the Howard versus the Kunto case. And this is a case that arose from the Hood Canal in Washington. This is on the coast of the state of Washington. It's a very beautiful place. But as this picture illustrates, the borders are very jagged, and the borders are very sharp. So you can imagine if you're trying to purchase some property there and you get a survey conducted, it's really tough to figure out where the boundaries are. Unlike a piece of land, like on a farm or something, you say, oh, from this tree to that cavern, right? But here you have water, water moves, boundaries shift, earth comes in, earth comes out, right? It's a very tough place. And the facts of this case are actually very unfortunate because they royally screwed up the surveying. So I want to spend a minute walking through this so that you all understand the facts before we get there. Because the facts are, every time I teach this case, I go back and look at this picture and I'm like, okay, this one, two, yeah, it's tricky. So, William, so you're next. Let's walk through the sequencing of events here. What happened? When did it happen? Who owns what?
Okay, so basically, of course, it starts back in the 30s, 1932. Someone named McCall resided in a place now owned by Kunto, who's the defendant. He has this deed for this plot of land, and basically, the plot of land that the deed says he owns is not the plot of land he's living in.
Yeah, very good.
And it just goes down the row, every house,
yeah.
And every piece like that.
Yeah, so this is like one of those cases where one person makes a mistake, and then the neighbor has a mistake, and then the neighbor has a mistake. Everyone down the row is basically 50 feet off from where they ought to be. So the map they put in your book is this one. I find this one a little bit confusing. I like this, it's colored, it's nicer, but it also helps describe the facts a little bit differently. So you have 3 pieces of land and 2 houses. Right, you have 3 pieces of land and you have 2 houses. So first we have Moyer, right? He's not a party to this case at all. Moyer, his house is on a piece of land. Who purchased that land? Howard. I'll mention this point briefly, but it's actually fairly important. When you buy a house, right, you're not just buying the house, you're buying the land underneath it. In fact, when you actually purchase a home, the home is just whatever happens to the top of the land. You're buying Blackacre, right? You're buying that width of land, whatever it is. So even though Moyer's house was here, the person who purchased that plot of record is Howard. Okay, so then what land did Moyer own? Moyer actually owned lot number B, letter B, the next one over. So again, Moyer's house is here, but Moyer owned this plot of land, letter B. Everyone with me? Now, what home was on lot number B? Kunto's house. So Moyer owned the land where Kunto's house was. Everyone with me? So what did Kunto own? He owned the abandoned lot over here. It was empty. So basically, Kunto owned a lot, but not where his house is. Moyer owned a lot where Kunto's house is. Okay, so enter Howard. Imagine Howard buys the plot where Moyer's houses. And Howard goes to Moyer, hey, look, I own the land where your house is. Let's work out a deal, right? I'll give you the land where your house is. And Moyer's like, cool. You give me the next door lot that you actually own where Kunto's house is. Right? So Moyer here made out like a bandit, right? He basically got a free piece of land. After all was said and done, Howard got nothing. Moyer, he made out good. Whoever his lawyer was did a very good job with that, right? That they worked that out. Why didn't Howard make a deal with Kunto to, I don't know, get the abandoned lot and just build his house here, right? Wouldn't that have been the easiest thing to do? Just say, hey Kunto, you have an abandoned lot. I'll give you that one with a three-way swap with Moyer. I'll build my house over here. No, but Howard wanted to be a jerk. And that's why I tell you, my friends, in property, almost every single case involves neighbors being jerks, without fail. This could have resolved so easy. Just build a new house over here, right? Is it really that different to be 100 feet over? Not really. But instead, Howard said, I'm going to screw over every person on the block because they're all on the wrong spot of land. All right. So everyone understand the facts. The facts are a little bit tricky. Everyone get the facts? Okay. Is that Keely? How do you say it?
Kaylee.
Kaylee. Yeah, just make sure you write how you want me to pronounce it. So Kaylee, what happened here, right? How did the courts handle this situation? What are the adverse possession issues that we're confronted with?
So basically, they were less willing to strictly apply the elements of adverse possession.
Well, first of all, go one at a time, right? What are elements of adverse possession? Let's walk through this. Just review from last week.
Well, there's entry, so there was entry in the...
Yeah, okay. Is there any doubt, right, that Kunto entered this land, lot number B?
No.
Okay, there's no doubt. He built a house there, no doubt whatsoever, okay? What's our next element?
Open and notorious.
Is there any doubt that he was openly occupying the land?
Not at all.
How come there's no doubt?
Well, all the neighbors knew that was
Yeah,
the property.
he built a house.
Yeah, and every other neighbor was in the same predicament.
Okay, good. Now, what's our third element right now?
Continuous.
Okay, so in order for Kunto to have acquired lot number, I keep saying lot number, it's a letter, lot number B by adverse possession, you have to have a continuous occupancy. Why was this one a little bit tricky?
Because there had been, this mistake had been since 1932 when McCall resided on the property, so they were asking whether they could tack on every...
Well, okay, before we get to tacking, right? We'll get to tacking in a minute. How often or how much time out of the year was Kunto present on this property? That's an important point.
Well, I believe that he came onto the property in 1946.
Was he there year round?
No, it was a summer home.
Okay, right, good. So, Christine, is going to a summer home only in the summer sufficient to have the continuous requirement of adverse possession?
Yes, because it's in line with how a similar property would be used by
Yes,
someone.
exactly. The mere fact that he was only there for the summer is fine, because that's how a person would have used that property. This was a summer home, right? This is a beach, not quite a beach, but a resort by the canal, very beautiful. During the winter, people stay in their homes. In the summer, they go to these lovely cabins by the woods, right? So continuity is not a problem. I think the court deals with that one fairly quickly. But that's not enough, because Kunto by himself wasn't there long enough. Matt, what's the issue there?
He wasn't there long enough, so he's trying to tack the...
Okay, good. You use this word tack. What is tack?
Basically adding the prior possessor's
Very good.
time of ownership to yours in order to hit the statute.
Okay, very good. So there's a concept in adverse possession known as tacking, right? Tacking. It generally states that if you have one person squatting, say for 5 years, and then another person squatting for the next 5 years, you're able to add those 5 and 5 is 10. You're able to get to 10 years. Cody, under what circumstances can you add together those 5 and 5 years?
Doesn't have something to do with fate with the title?
No, if your book's up, it helps also. Virginia, under what circumstances can you tack together the 5 and 5 years?
If there's privity.
Privity. Okay, very good. What is privity, Virginia?
The relationship between the two parties.
Do you remember learning about privity in another class? That's
Yeah.
not familiar? Privy of contract, right? Privity, and it actually comes from the same words for private parts. They're all related, right? But it basically means a close relationship. You'll never forget that word now. I looked it up in the Oxford English Dictionary. You have to have a close relationship, right? So if person A squats for 5 years and then sells to person B, squats for another 5 years, you can tack together, right? A continuous period of 10 years. So, let's see, does the court find that the requirements of privity are satisfied here?
Yes.
Okay, how come?
They find that it is satisfied because of the defendant's claim of right.
Okay, good. So walk me through that. What's the claim of right?
As of the last successive purchasers who received the title,
Okay.
they've sufficiently found the contiguous tract.
Okay, very good. What was the state of mind of Kunto?
It was, he believed that was his.
What do we call that? What's there were 3 different states of mind. Which one is that one called?
Yeah, the good faith.
Yelling at your neighbor, but this one is
Yeah,
yeah.
the good faith one.
Correct.
I thought I owned it.
Yeah.
So,
So the court finds that the claim of right there is proper, right? Because he had the correct state of mind. He thought it was his. This was an honest mistake. You know, this is a hard place to survey. They were only 50 feet over. So we have the continuity, right? And we have the claim of right. So is that it? I mean, Robert, is there anything else in this analysis? Is there anything else to discuss here, or did we just cover the entire case? My leading question suggests the answer is not.
yeah.
Yeah. What are we missing here, right?
We talked about tacking. We talked about fate. I'm not sure what was.
Okay, let me ask the question like this. Generally, when a person has a deed, right, and adverse possession is involved, why is there usually a problem, right? When they have a deed, it says you own Blackacre, and then adverse possession comes up. What are usually the facts there? Think of the case we did last week with the Novi-Gorski steps.
Usually there's not somebody living there.
Well, what was the issue in Manila Vigorski last week? I have no conception of time, last class.
Actually, I was
Okay. David. What would, yeah, I mean, after your last class, what was the issue in Manila Vigorski, right? Why was there an adverse possession area there? An adverse possession issue?
Whether or not it was hostile?
Well, that was true, but what was the actual facts there? What happened there?
The truant didn't know
Didn't know what?
that there was an encroachment
An encroachment, right? So here there was a case where the owner actually owned Blackacre, but there was encroachment of 15 inches, right? There was encroachment of 15 inches. Everyone remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here, is there an issue of an encroachment of 15 inches?
No.
What's being encroached?
the
entire thing.
The whole
Right. So the court's like, can we even apply adverse possession where it's not like a 15-inch deal, but none of the property on your deed is actually what you say it is, right? It's 100% encroachment. Everyone is basically 50 feet over. And the court basically says, I don't know, Mark, what's the court say to this? I mean, no one is where they're supposed to be. It's not like a little 15-inch deal. It's the entire thing.
They just say, they just reversed the appellate court's decision and said it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. So at the bottom, right, once we get past the continuity issue, we get past the tacking issue, the court fudges a bit, right? They basically say, well, this is go ahead, Mark.
This is the land now.
Yeah, this is a situation, right? You're on a place with lots of cliffs, with lots of water. It's unreasonable to ask people to conduct these expert surveys. We're just going to move everyone over 50 feet and keep everyone happy. right? That's the bottom line. Everyone gets to be over 50 feet. The status quo is maintained. Howard, well, what happens to Howard? Amy, what does Howard get out of this? Nothing. He perhaps can get, if he had what's called title insurance, perhaps you can sue the person who sold it to him. But Howard is basically left out with not much.
Isn't Lot A still there?
Well, Lot A is still owned by Kunto.
And he's pissed him off, probably.
Oh, and he's pissed off Kunto. So now, Kunto basically has his house here, and he has a lot next to it. So Kunto made out like a bandit. Mori made out great. Howard, see, this is why you don't sue your neighbors. You never win. As a general rule, the person who's already there has a much stronger claim to it than the new guy coming in, right? Because he has his house there, he's lived there, it's been there for years, living, whatever. The new guy is usually out of luck. So do not sue your neighbors. It usually never works out well. Okay, any other questions on that? Just for you to know, Texas does permit tacking. Section 16.023, to satisfy limitations period, peaceable and adverse possession does not need to continue the same person, but there must be a privity of estate. Privity of estate and privity of contract are not exactly the same, but it's close enough for your studies between each holder and its successor. So you need to have that sort of privity. Okay? Everyone okay with that? Everyone get any questions on number one, on Kunto? Right? The period's continuous, even though they're only there in the summer. You can tack together when there's a privity of estate. And the claim of right or the state of mind here basically doesn't matter because everyone made a big whoopsie. I think that's the court's bottom line. Anything else in that one? All right. Turn to page 176, please. There are a couple of questions that are quite good. I want to walk you through them. Who's next? I'll go back up top. Is that Nicole?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On page 176, please read question number 1.
In 2008, enters reversely upon Acre, owned by O. In 2007, B tells A, get out of here, I'm taking over. A then threatens, leaves, and B enters into possession. In 2010, who owns Acre?
Okay, so let's look at the question, right? In 2000, A enters Blackacre, it's owned by O. In 2007, B tells A, get out of here, I'm taking over. Okay, so let's start the questioning, right? Get your clickers ready. This actually works well for multiple choice. A is A, and B is B. A or B, right? Who owns Blackacre in 2010? Yeah, well, the answer's not. Okay, A, B, or O. So make O C. Again, I'm still working at the kinks, so I'm going to figure this out. I got it. The trick is, I don't want to do a PowerPoint slide because that's very rigid, so I want to just have the book up here. But if I do that, I have to write on the board my options, which are not pre-scripted. So A, B, or O. A, B, or O. Okay? Sorry about that. I promise this is going to be smooth. It's going to be real smooth eventually. Okay? All right. Close enough. About a minute. Okay, good. Okay, let's see the results. Okay. Most of you, and if people picked wrong because I gave you the false choice initially, my mistake, but most of you picked C. Okay? Nicole, what'd you pick?
Wait, can you tell me what the answer choices were?
Oh.
I think I got it right.
A is A, B is B, C is O.
Okay, I got it wrong. I picked B because I thought that since he was the last one to be in possession of it, and you can tack the 7.
What's required for tacking, Nicole?
Privity.
Is there privity here?
Just the close relationship.
Ah, what is the relationship here? Is it close?
Between the squatters?
Between A and B, yeah.
Was it just not back-to-back periods?
Well, if you ask A, hey, what do you think about B? What will you tell you? Why not?
People
Can you have privity if B kicks at A?
I'd still say that that's a relationship of some
Not
sort.
close enough. Wait, what'd you put, Casey?
I put O.
Okay, why'd you think O?
Because I didn't think that either of them had satisfied the adverse criteria.
Yeah, exactly right. You have no tacking here because there's no privity. When literally B throws A off the property, right? That does not cut it. That does not cut it at all. Okay, you need to have not just a close relationship, but an actual contractual relationship of some sort. Yeah, who's that? Is it Anna? Yeah. He's someone's blocking you.
I put the same thing whole also because in Kunto they call it not a close relationship but a reasonable connection. And I thought that imposed.
Okay, good. These questions are good now. Yeah, that's exactly right. Reasonableness is defined by market conditions, right? And that involves some sort of arm's length transaction. This was an active battery probably, right? We threw the guy off the property. So there's not an adequate relationship here. Very good, I appreciate that. I like this thing so far because it tells me immediately where students may not be on the same page. So this is actually very helpful. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, let's try now question number 2. Okay. Okay. I'm going to start the polling. Okay. Is that Antonella, ma'am?
Yeah.
You want to read question number 2, please?
In 1994, A enters adversely upon Blackacre, owned by O. In 1995, O dies, leaving a will that divides Blackacre to B for life, remainder to C. In 2010, B dies without ever having entered upon Blackacre, who owns Blackacre.
Okay. Okay. So the choices are A, B, or C. Actually, no, is B dead?
B's dead.
B died, so just A or C, right? Don't put B to make it confusing, just pick A or C. Okay, go. Okay. Who owns it? A or C? Okay. You never thought you'd have to see remainders ever again, didn't you? What I'll do next one is I won't open the polling until I write the letters on the boards. I think I'm screwing this up. I'm going to improve this. Okay. Okay, good enough. See results. Okay, most of you picked A. Okay. Antonella, what'd you select?
I picked A.
Okay, why'd you put A?
Because if A stayed there for the statute of limitations ran out and A stayed there and no one else entered the land or anything, then I would think that A would have adverse possession over it.
Okay. Let's look at the sequencing, right, Antonella? When did the squatting begin? What year?
1994.
When did the guy write his will? When did
He died in 1995.
Okay. And when was the will executed? Generally, when are wills executed?
When they died.
Yeah. Can a subsequent conveyance terminate the squatting? Can a subsequent conveyance after the squatting begin terminate the squatting period? What do you think, Stormy?
I picked C.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this question. And that's fine, that's fine. Can a subsequent conveyance after the squatting begin terminate the squatting?
I felt like it would.
What's the only way to stop them from squatting? Just think of Mr. Robinson.
I definitely
Call the cops. Right? Call the cops. The mere fact that the property was subsequently conveyed afterwards does not terminate the 10-year period. So by 2004, A had it free and clear. And I'll take this even one more step. B, who had a life estate, and C had the remainder, they then had the interest of kicking out the squatter, right? The task of kicking out the squatter fell to the new guys, the life estate person, the remainderman. Sorry, Tyler's your hand up?
No.
Okay, Yusef?
Yeah, so the open and notorious for O, if he knew about it and then he devises it by will,
Yeah.
does he, is it his, like, he has to tell B that this is happening, or?
Well, no, think about it this way, right? If you inherit a piece of property, what's the first thing you do? You go there and you check it out. You see, is someone living there? You check, is someone paying property tax on it, right? you do your due diligence. And that's not just for the life estate person. The remainder men also have a future interest, so you should check out also. You get that?
Yeah.
Let's throw another hand somewhere.
Oh no, you answered my question.
I love when I see when students are on the same page, it makes me happy. Very good. Okay. So during, I'm sorry, 1 second. So during the squatting, either B or C could have ejected A. They did not do that. The failure to do that means they had nothing to complain about in 2010. Yes, ma'am.
So what if so O died in 2000.
95.
95.
Yeah.
But actually, let me think of my question.
I'll come back to it. I think that's another hand. Okay, is that Justin?
Yeah, so to one extreme, I mean, if you have someone who's been squatting for 9.5 years,
Yeah.
and that land is conveyed, and it's thousands of acres, ranch or something. If there's only a few months left before the statute of limitations runs out, does that person who purchased it have a duty to inspect all of that within just a month?
So I think in that case, which element, you have 4 elements, right? Which element becomes most important?
Open and obvious. So
Yeah.
the court put more emphasis on that.
The court
so
can
that
say,
just
say the person only had 6 months and he was living in the cabin in the middle of the woods. That was not notorious enough.
Okay.
So you could perhaps defeat it. Julian, you get it yet? Or?
No, it's okay.
You sure? All right.
Okay, so now that it's supposed to go to C has no claim to it.
None. C had the option of ejecting A during this period. Didn't do it. So you're out of luck. Yeah, Tyler.
Your hypothetical adjustment a second ago, you said the court might look at the open and notorious factor of the guy living in the cabin on the property.
Yeah.
Would the court not also weigh the fact that he's lived this almost entire statutory period on this land without being looked at? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, sorry you came and looked late when you got it from dad, but I've been living in that community.
Yeah, I think even in the example Justin gave that the 10 years would run and he'd be okay, the squatter would get it. In other words, when you inherit a piece of property, you have certain responsibilities, and one of those is to determine if someone's squatting.
So essentially, C could have, because he had a stick, even when O first died and divided it to B, he still had a future interest, so he could have at that point
Yes.
gone in and kicked them out like, hey, my future interest is in
You could enforce his future interest, exactly. Absolutely. The remainder can still enforce his future interest. There's not a problem there. There's no problem there at all. You may have seen this in the doctrine of waste, right? What if the person's a life estate and the remainder men has something, after the person dies? If the person with the life estate is creating waste and destroying the property, the remainder men can actually sue and say, hey, stop it, you're screwing up my inheritance. You're just a placeholder, right? Until you die, then I get it. Anything else in question? The question we just did. Jillian, you sure you're okay? Okay, good. Anything else? No? It's a little flickering. You seeing that? I don't know what that is. Okay, whatever. The next topic in adverse possession concerns disabilities. And I don't mean here disabilities in the sense that you have a handicap or something. Well, that can be disability. I mean this in the legal sense. And you study this in contracts, right? You study that a person under the age of 18 cannot make a contract, right? You actually call them incompetent, which is a strange word. They're not crazy, but they're simply not competent to make a contract. Most states, and Texas has one as well, have certain definitions of disabilities. And the idea is this: if a disability exists when the squatting begins, the clock does not start ticking. Right? The idea is you can't squat against a person with a disability. The clock is tolled, as we would say. But if a disability starts after the squatting begins, the clock keeps ticking, because you were aware when the squatting began. So I'll take a look at Texas. This is section 16.001. And it says, for the purposes of this subchapter, a person is under a legal disability if the person is, and it lists a couple different things. Younger than 18, right? So this is the same deal in contracts. if you own some property and you're under 18 and someone's squatting there, the clock doesn't run, so they can't get to 10 years. Now, God willing, everyone who's 18 years today everyone who's under 18 will be over 18, right? So say you're 16 years old now, the clock doesn't start running. But on your 18th birthday, tick, 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 right? The clock starts ticking. So when it's a disability question involving age, be careful of when the person turns 18. The second one that Texas lists is if you're of unsound mind. That's not defined, and people always ask about this. I don't know what that means. I'm sure it varies wildly. People can be born with an unsound mind. You can have some sort of condition where you get an unsound mind later in life, and maybe after treatment you have a sound mind. I am not particularly concerned about the nuances of Texas unsound mind law, but you have to be aware that even if you think you're squatting against someone, if it's determined that he was not mentally competent, your squatting period never ran. Jesse?
Is this determined by psychiatrists?
I honestly don't know. I suspect psychiatrists are part of it. This doesn't include an IQ score or some sort of specific measure. This comes up a lot in the death penalty context, right? Who is competent to stand trial? It's a very flexible area of law, so I wouldn't put too much worry about that. Other states have a number of other criteria. I don't think Texas has this, but some states have, are you in prison? Right? If you're in prison, you can't very well evict a squatter. Some states have veterans, right? If you're deployed overseas, you can't very well evict squatters. But under Texas law, the only two are age and unsound mind. Okay? So again, if the disability was present at the start of the squatting, the clock never starts. If the disability begins subsequent to the squatting, the clock keeps rolling. In any case, once the disability ends, for sure, that's when the clock resumes. Okay? All right, let's do some questions on this one. 177. Who am I up to? Tyler, I think you're next. Can you read? There's some questions on 177 due to question 1, please.
When the following examples would the adverse possessor apply title under statute set out above? So you read the whole thing?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Read that, please. Yes.
Okay.
When in the following examples,
when the adverse possessor acquired title under the statute set out above, in each case, O is the owner in 1995, and A entered on May 1st, 1995. The age of majority is 18. And reading the example, understand that to die intestate means title by will. In such cases, the decedent's estate goes to heirs if the decedent has it.
okay. So read question number 1 now.
O is insane in 1995. O dies insane and intestate in 2008.
Okay. So I'm going to try this. Instead of doing multiple choice, numeric, I want you to enter a year. Okay? See if this works. If this doesn't work, I won't use it. In what year, right, if O's heir, H, is under no disability in 2008, in what year would the squatter gain adverse possession? Again, assume a 10-year limit. O is insane. Okay, I'm going to start this now. O is insane in 1995. He dies in 2008. There's a 10-year limitation. O's heir H is under no disability in 2008. And I want you to type in a year. I haven't tried this one. Let's see if this works. I practiced it yesterday, but we'll see if it works. It's question number 1A, right? In what year will a squatter get adverse possession, assuming the squatter moved in 1995? A. I'm looking for a number.
Does it give like a statistical, like the bar chart?
I don't know. We'll see.
I've never seen this done before.
Yeah, me neither. Break a new ground. Don't cheat. Do whatever you think. If you talk to your friends, it defeats the purpose. This is what you know.
Do we consider
I'm only looking at Part A. Okay? All right, I got about 50 people stopping it now. Okay. I have no idea this is going to work. Okay, so, this is hard for you to read, but 70% of you put 2018. A handful of you put 2030. I don't know. Okay.
They were counting the 60.
Tyler, what did you put, Tyler?
I put 2018.
Okay, why did you put 2018?
Because the slaughter came in 95, but O was mentally competent, so the statute of limitations does not begin until death, when it's conveyed upon someone that was mentally capable.
Okay, good. So you said the statute runs in it starts running in 2008 when there's no longer disability, and it goes on and on and on, right? Who put, let's see, who put something else they want to volunteer? Yeah, Lauren.
I put 2013 because I thought that once he passed, then a 5-year rule kicked in.
Well, I said the statute was 10 years.
Right, but isn't the rule that they have?
That's good.
I just confused the whole rule between the rule and the book that they stated in the book.
Okay, we're using 10 years. Okay. Anyone put anything else? Who put 2030? Okay. Let's do Part B. Okay. Part B says at the time in 2008, the heir is 6 years old. I'm going to start another one. What year then does a squatter acquire adverse possession? Again, we're now in Part B. The heir is 6 years old in 2018. At what juncture does adverse possession accrue? Looking for a year. Don't cheat. Do your own homework. Ten-year statute of limitations. Okay. Another 10 seconds. All right, I'll stop it here. Actually, people still put him in. I think about a minute is the right time frame, so I'll keep it for a minute. That's about right. I think it's just about everyone. Okay, let's see what we got. Results. All right. So a lot of you put 2030. Some of you put 2020. One of you put 2008. Okay, who am I up to? Anna, what'd you put?
I put 2030.
Why'd you put 2030?
The clock doesn't start to run until he's 18, which is 2020.
So you put one disability after the other, right? Can you do that?
No.
Can you tack disabilities?
No.
Jillian? No. Everyone hear what I just said? You cannot tack disabilities. You only get one bite at the apple. So if person A was incompetent, and then person B was a child, person B is irrelevant. You only get one disability to toll. So long as the first person with a disability is alive, the clock stops. But once he dies, or once that disability disappears, the clock starts ticking. So the answer is
2018.
2018, same as before. The answer is exactly the same. Only about 4 of you got that. The answer is exactly the same. It doesn't matter. You cannot tack disabilities one at a time. I want to see that. Chester?
So I know in a lot of cases the law isn't fair, but in this case, a 6-year-old.
Yeah, it's not fair.
Yeah.
The tacking is permitted when you're squatter one to the next, but tacking is not permitted under law. I'll show you the Texas code I showed you a minute ago, but it's right here. It says, right here. It's hard for you to read, but I can read it to you. A person may not tack one legal disability to another to extend limitations period.
So would the policy be for the original person who was disabled, for them to have a caretaker that should be looking at their land?
Yeah.
In that type of case?
Yeah. So long as the person was of unsound mind and then the squatting began, the clock stops. But once that disability disappears, whether it's through death or maybe the person's cured or whatever, right, the clock resumes. So once the original guy died, and it went on to the 6-year-old. Clock tick, 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 2018. Even though he was a 6-year-old and wouldn't turn of age for another 12 years. Unfair. You're right on the mark with that one. Everyone get that one? Any questions on Bradley?
So is there no way to enforce the 6-year-old property rights then?
Well, the 6-year-old almost certainly has a guardian who can kick out the squatter. Again, right? The 6-year-old's parents, whoever they happen to be, had a decade to get rid of him. They didn't do it. One at a time. Can't hear. Raise your hand, please.
What if does it make a difference if that was his dad? I guess he has a guardian.
All 6-year-olds who own property will have some sort of guardian appointed to them. You learned this last semester, but people can actually inherit property when they're in utero, right? You can actually have a person in the womb own property, and usually they appoint a guardian for that person. Jesse.
So let's say you have like a disabled 6-year-old, say an unsound mind 6-year-old, and the adverse possession starts when she's like 8.
Which disability do you pick? Is that your question?
I'm saying, do you only get one? So how do you determine which one?
Well, let me answer your question in 2 different ways, right? Let's assume that person A was a 6-year-old with a disability. Does the disability end when they turn 18, or is it for the rest of their life? I think the answer is you use the longer disability of the two, right? So the person has some sort of physical or mental disability for their entire life, the clock will never start. But the second question is, what happens if here, age is 6 years old and disabled? Would make a difference. You cannot tack disabilities under the law. Yes, sir, Tyler.
So, if you owned like millions of acres of property, to safeguard against squatting, could you convey that property to your mentally incompetent parent?
Someone's being smart. You realize when you convey property to someone else, they can then sell it away from you.
I mean, I'm saying if they're so mentally incompetent.
Yeah, but they're going to have a guardian, and that guardian may decide to sell it away from you.
What if I'm their
Can you be
guardian?
that?
Then you're not acting in their best interest, you're acting in your own best interest, right? The guardian is supposed to be in the person's best interest, so no, it's a lot easier to just evict the squatter than to the entire thing you just described. Like, it's really complicated.
I wouldn't do that, I'm just curious.
No, never. What else? Anyone else? Let's try another one. These questions are good. Let's do number 2. Who's next? Is that Jillian? Read number 2, please.
O has no disability in 1995. O died as a testing in 2004. O's age is 2 years old.
Okay. So in what year does the squatter gain access? Again, the squatter entered 1995. O had no disability. He dies in testing in 2004. But the heir is only 2 years old.
Is it still 10 years?
Still 10 years, yeah. 10 years for all of them. Okay. Another 30 seconds. What year does the squatter gain possession? We'll have one more question after this and we'll move on. I know law students hate math, but yeah, I know. Okay, I'm going to stop it in 3, 2, 1. All right. Results. Okay, half of you put 2005, and the rest are scattered. All right, what'd you pick, Avery?
I think 2005.
Okay, why'd you say 2005?
Because the disability occurred after the census.
Okay.
So the statute of limitations.
So you said the statute ran immediately, right? Did someone put something other than 2005? Cody?
I put 2030.
Okay, why'd you put 2030?
Because they weren't stacking disabilities, it was a new disability, but I feel like
Did anyone put something else? Yes, sir.
2020.
Okay, why 2020?
It was 16 years after the 2004, so it'd be the majority.
Okay. Jesse?
I thought it was 2021 just because it was 9 years and then one more year after she's 18.
Okay, so Avery, let's go back to you. Was there a disability at the time the squatting began? When did the disability arise? Well, it arose how many years after the entry? 9 years. Okay, what happens on year 10? Is the clock running starting in 2004? Does the clock keep running? Yes. The clock never stops. So she's right. The answer is 2005, right? When a disability arises after the entry begins, the clock never stops. Tick, tick, tick. The clock keeps ticking. You guys with your math are doing real good, right? But the basic principle is when the disability arises afterwards, you start counting right away. Okay? Everyone get that?
So if he wasn't intestate, if he had devised his will
Wouldn't matter.
before?
It would not matter. If there's no disability at the time of entry, the clock keeps ticking. The clock only stops if the disability exists before the entry. Make sense? Everyone okay with that? Question number 2. All right, let's do one more. Question number 3. Who's that, Michael?
Yeah.
Can you read for me paragraph 3, please, or question number 3?
O was 8 years old in 1995. In 2002, O becomes mentally ill and dies in intestate in 2011. O's heir H is under no disability. Does the adverse possessor here acquire title in 2005, 2010, or at some later date?
Okay, I'm going to start the numbers, go now. Enter the year. Again, he entered in 1995, a 10-year period. At what point does A acquire it? Okay, another 30 seconds. 2005, 2010, or some other date. Alright, we're stopping at 5 seconds. A lot of you aren't voting, or at least not voting in time, but I will take the wisdom of the crowds. Okay. Alright, stop. Results. Okay. A third of you put 2005. A third of you put 2015, and some of you put other years. Alright, Michael, what'd you put?
05.
Why'd you say 2005?
Because the statute of limitations is 10 years, and that's in 2005, and the owner wasn't of the age of majority.
When does the clock start running on O? Well, no. When does the one at a time? Just don't interrupt. When does the clock start running? He's 8 years old, right? Does he have a disability at that time?
Yes, he's.
When does his disability vanish?
10 years.
So when does the clock start running then? What year?
20.
Well, look, he was. Let's do math, right?
2005, yeah.
Yeah. So the clock starts running in 2005. So then how long must the squatter stay there?
Another 10 years.
So what year has that become? 2015. Make sure you start running your clock. Unlike a person of unsound mind, when age is the disability, everyone becomes 18 unless they die, right? Everyone becomes 18 at some point. And the clock starts running here, as Michael said, in 2005. So the answer is 2015. Yusuf?
In this situation, since the squatter began squatting whenever he was 8, you had to pick that disability from 18, right?
That's the first one you picked, yep. Yeah. All right, someone put something else other than 2000, Bradley.
I put 2021.
2021, why 2021?
Because he had the disability of him being 8 years old.
Uh-huh.
I figured that ends and we picked the longer one when she becomes mentally ill in 2002. So then that's our disability, if you will.
Well, Bradley, let me ask you this question though. In 2005, right? Was he? I'm sorry. Which disability goes away first?
The 8 years old.
Right. He becomes an age majority in 2005, but he became mentally ill beforehand, right?
Correct.
So your thinking is on the right track, but you have to work with a disability in effect when the squatting began. He didn't become mentally ill till much later, so you have to start with the disability here. Remember, a disability that arises later in time doesn't count for anything. You need to use a disability at the outset. But good point. I'm glad you raised that. Yes, Lauren.
The fact that he died before he turned 18 didn't stop the clock.
No.
I mean, didn't start the clock.
Well, he died in 2011, so he had already reached the age of 18. Right.
Okay.
But let's say he had died before he reached 18. Once he dies, the clock starts ticking again. Anything else in this question number 3? Anything else in question number 3? Going once, going twice. All right. Okay, I'll move on. Very good. I think these questions are working good. Good? Yeah? Gives you instant feedback. Adds maybe 4 or 5 minutes of literally the clock ticking, right, with the feedback, but I think we'll get better with time. There's a note in your book about adverse possession against the government. I think I mentioned this last week. That's why Rockefeller Center in Times Square, Rockefeller Center in New York City, they shut down the sidewalk so as the public can't gain a right of prescriptive easement. The last case is something of a different case, which concerns personal property. If we have to describe the name of this class, it's not just property, it's real property. Virtually everything we discuss involves land, which is real property. Like, the phrase real estate, it's called real because it refers to real property, actual land. Personal property, though, like a painting or something else, a chattel, if you will, a thing, is a different deal, but some of the same rules apply. So the case we have here, called O'Keefe versus Snyder, is a decision from the New Jersey Supreme Court. How many of you ever heard of Georgia O'Keefe before this case? Oh, good, a lot of you. Good. So she was a very famous artist in the 20th century. This is a picture of her. She had a lot of famous paintings. This one was called Cliffs. This one was called Seaweed. If you ever saw the Thomas Crown Affair, I think one of the portraits stolen was a Georgia O'Keefe painting. And this case is an application of adverse possession to stolen property, right? Now, when you first read this, you think, wait a minute, if someone stole a piece of property, don't they have to give it back? Here's the rub. If someone steals property from you, and you know they stole it, and you don't take the steps to recover it in the period of time, they've acquired it through adverse possession, right? To date, all the adverse possession cases we've had involve trespassing, right? Trespass. Trespass is a crime, as is theft. Theft is a crime. So there's a parallel between a person trespassing and taking your property versus literally picking up your painting and running away with it. What makes this case tricky is the clock, right? When someone's squatting on a piece of land, it's open and notorious. You know they're there. When someone has a painting hanging up in the living room, odds are you're not going to know it. When someone's in a piece of property and they're paying property taxes, there's records of it. When they have your painting in their basement somewhere, hidden in a box, they're not going to know about it. So the court here in New Jersey has to grapple with the application of a doctrine meant for real property as applied to personal property. Okay? Who's next? Isaac, my friend. Yes, sir. Protecting and serving us as well. By the way, Isaac, you know the drill. This is a decision from the New Jersey Supreme Court. What are they going to do? Yeah, they're going to reverse the common law. Without fail, they're going to reverse the common law. They do it every single time without fail. Okay, Isaac, walk me through the facts. The facts here are a little bit tricky.
Well, this all hinges on the fact question of when the other party.
Well, walk me through. So what was actually stolen here?
All right,
Let's go back to the beginning.
It's about 3 paintings painted by Miss O'Keefe. She said they were stolen. The other party said they've been having them since the early 1940s. Keep in mind this case is in the 1970s, 30 some odd years after the original theft.
Right. Very good. Keep going. Yeah, that's fine.
She noticed them. She's claimed to have noticed them missing in 1946, but did not report them missing to the police department or any other law enforcement agency. Didn't report them missing to anyone like art insurance. And so the fact question of when did it actually go over there was the main question of the case.
Okay, very good. So the facts in this case are, shall we say, hazy, right? This involved paintings that were almost certainly stolen decades ago. Back in the 1940s, paintings went missing from her gallery. For nearly 3 decades, O'Keefe never reported the theft or she advertised them. And during this time, the paintings were hanging in Frank's home. Finally, in 1972, at which point she was really famous, right? When this first started, she wasn't very famous, but later in life, her skyrocketed. So finally, in 1972, she reports theft, and she lists it as stolen with this Art Dealer Association of America. A couple years later, she learns that the paintings are on display. She demands that they be returned. This guy, Snyder, says absolutely not. And O'Keefe sues for replevin. Replevin, right? Jesse, what's replevin?
Want her stuff back.
Yeah. Where have you seen replevin before? Remember that?
It's the same with like real property.
Well,
I mean, if you're...
do you remember Contracts, Rose of Aberlin, replevin for a cow? No, you did that? Anyway, it's seared in my memory in Contracts. In the very first week, there was a case called, the first sentence was replevin for a cow. Replevin was a common law writ where you didn't want compensation, you wanted the object back, right? So if someone steals something from you, you can say, okay, keep the object, just give me the value of it in cash, or replevin, give me the thing back. O'Keefe here wanted the actual painting in return. Okay? So in other words, we have a situation, the painting was missing for 3 decades, she only listed it stolen in 1972, and within a couple years, she found out about it. And we have a 6-year adverse possession period for prescription. All right, Jesse, what does the court do here?
They use the discovery rule instead when it's not real property.
Okay, well, what was the, good, you're exactly right. What was the common law rule that was applied by the lower courts?
The lower courts, they were using the normal statute of limitations that they use for real property.
Right. And when would that normal statute of limitations have run? Roughly.
Like 56.
Yeah, basically 1950s, right? If you applied the normal 6-year limitation period, 6 years after the painting was stolen, the normal period would have run. Okay, very good. Is that Caitlin? Yeah. Just tilt your car a little bit. Perfect. Thank you. Caitlin, why did the New Jersey Supreme Court, which always reverses the common law, find that this common law rule ought to be reversed?
I think because they needed more proof of the theft.
Give me more. You're on the right track. No. What do you think the problems are when you have a rule that says you only have 6 years to report or to pursue and recover a stolen painting? What's problematic about a 6-year rule? I'm sorry?
Like evidence matters.
Okay, good. What do you mean?
Time passing.
Well, what about a 6-year rule is unfair in this case for O'Keefe? Let me ask the question that way.
She didn't realize it.
Why did you realize it?
Not sure why she didn't realize it.
Well, why do you think she didn't realize it?
She wasn't big back then, so maybe.
Let's see, Paige, why do you think it's unfair then to have this 6-year rule applied to Ms. O'Keefe?
Because it's art, not property.
Good. And what's specific about art?
It's more easily hidden.
Ah, why is it more easily hidden? Yeah, it's little, right? By definition, a piece of property is open, right? You can walk down the street, you can see someone living there, you see Mr. Robinson sitting in the house, right? With a painting, though, it's the exact opposite. You can easily move them, put them inside your living room, put them in a box in your basement, right? The mistake here was they put it in an art gallery, right? They got cocky, right? Once they put it in an art gallery, that's showing the world, oh, her painting's right over here. But paintings can be done differently. So what the court does here is they basically develop a new area of law completely randomly. Now, I am often very difficult on the New Jersey Supreme Court, and here is no exception. Travis, was the record clear of exactly when Ms. O'Keefe realized they were gone and when they were stolen? Is the record clear here?
Not really.
What should a normal court of appeals have done in this situation where the record's not clear? And by normal, I mean not New Jersey. I'm from Staten Island. I have some agency there. But what would a normal court do if the record's not clear? A court of appeals or state Supreme Court? Remanded for what?
To clear up the facts.
Yeah, right? If you're an appellate judge and you get a case and the facts make no sense, send it back down to the lower court and do facts. Is that what happened here?
At the end, yeah.
Oh, at the end, right? What about all the crap in the middle, right? So what drives me nuts about this case is the simple answer is remand for further factual findings. But instead, the court takes this opportunity to basically rewrite the law and make all these other decisions that are entirely unnecessary. That's why this decision drives me nuts, right? So is that Alexander?
Alex, yeah.
Alex, thank you. So Alex, so what new rule does the Supreme Court of New Jersey articulate in this decision?
The discovery rule.
Okay, good. And then, so what is this discovery rule?
So if an artist diligently seeks the recovery of a lost or stolen painting or work of art, but cannot find it or discover it, the identity of the possessor, the statute of limitations.
Very good. They developed this new rule. In the old rule, the 6-year clock started ticking once a thing was stolen, right? But now they say the 6-year clock only starts when you know or reasonably should know that someone has it. Travis, what's the difference between knowing something and you should have known it, right? You probably did this in torts or something else, but what's the difference between you know it or you should have known it? Uh-huh. Is it possible for someone not to know but that they should have known? Who decides whether you should know something in this case? The judge. This is what you might call a reasonable person standard, right? We're flashing back from last semester, right? A reasonable person standard. The idea is, all right, even if Miss O'Keefe was playing dumb, right, and she didn't really make any efforts whatsoever to investigate, she should have known if it was on display in New Jersey that it was gone. So this imposes something of a burden on the person who lost the property to be diligent in pursuing their rights. Right? Did the person know, or should they have known? Okay. Now, is that William?
Yes, sir.
So William, generally in adverse possession, right? Think of Mr. Robinson, for example. Who has the burden of proof, right? Who has the burden of showing that they meet the 4 elements? In a normal adverse possession situation, think of Mr. Robinson or anyone else.
That would be the person who's firstly possessing the property.
The squatter, right?
Yes.
The squatter has a burden of proving each of the 4 elements. Who has the burden here?
It would be, the case puts it, the burden's on the owner of the one seeking the benefit of the rule to establish facts that would justify deferring the beginning of.
And who is that?
That would be Ms.
O'Keefe, the painter, right? So the Supreme Court not only creates this new discovery rule, they shift the burden. They shift the burden. The burden now falls to the plaintiff, Miss O'Keefe, who's seeking the return of the object. Because she has to show that the limitation period didn't start running yet. She has to show, look, I never knew, and it was completely unreasonable. It was impossible for me to know that this painting was in this guy's house. So the court rewrites the discovery rule for continuity and shifts the burden for the burden of proof for establishing the claim. And even go one step further and say you can tack, right? So if person A had the painting for 5 years and person B had the painting for 5 years, and they sold it to each other, there's privity of contract, they'll say, and you get to basically hold the clock forever, right? So this is a significant case in that they do a lot of stuff. They first eliminate the normal requirement for continuity with this discovery rule. Second, they impose this requirement of a burden on the property owner. And third, they allow tacking for the adverse possession of personal property. So in those three respects, this is a pretty wide-ranging case. Anna?
When I was reading this, I was just wondering, why is this not dicta for not using a rule on that?
If you look at my lecture notes and big letters say dicta, right? You're right. This entire decision is a waste of time, right? But it's signaling what they think. The second the court said we don't have enough facts to decide it, it's been a one-paragraph decision, remand, and it would have made all of your reading so much lighter. Unfortunately, the New Jersey Supreme Court doesn't play that way. They like creating this policy. And I should add, Anna, you're exactly right. Not only did they establish a new rule, they basically directed the art industry to establish a new registry. And they said, we can't tell you what to do, we're going to make the law work in a certain way if this registry exists. So basically, the court was not only exercising jurisdiction over the parties in front of them, they were telling art dealers how to run their business. It's a remarkable decision. We will do a couple of cases from the New Jersey Supreme Court this semester. You had one last class in Manila Vigorski with the sidewalk cement. Another one called Burlington County NAACP versus Township of Mount Laurel. We'll do that later this semester. This is a court known for not playing by the rules. They like to do their own thing. The fact that it's in your book doesn't mean that this is a majority rule. It isn't, but it's a good way of illustrating how these doctrines have been applied. So any questions on O'Keefe versus Snyder, or whatever, the O'Keefe case?
You're saying the discovery doctrine is or isn't a majority rule?
That is not a majority rule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah. No, I mean this is a New Jersey thing. Yeah, it's an outlier. Which is why I think the book includes it, because in most cases where personal property is being adversely possessed, it's almost always going to prevail. So the mere fact that you steal something, if you hold on to it long enough, you can keep it. It's a strange idea, right?
So hypothetically, there's a question on the test that asks about adverse possession of chattel. Then how do we answer it? Do we answer it the same way we would have land?
Well, I'll tell you this. If you look at my test, right, the very first sentence of each question tells you where you are. You're in Jersey. You're in Texas. You're in California. You're in a common law regime. You're in a modern regime. I will tell you on the exam what regime you're under. So you'll need to know this. In fact, if I tell you you're in New Jersey, which I've done before, you'll know exactly what I'm asking about, because there are only so many New Jersey cases. I used to have a case involving, they edited out the book, which I was sad about, but involving beach erosion in New Jersey. It was a very strange rule. But, you know, so you'll see specific cases to the jurisdiction you're in. Anything else on O'Keefe? Yes, sir. Is that Robert?
Yes.
Get your big name tag later.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
What is the majority rule then for?
The clock starts ticking when things stolen. Yeah, and so long as it's open. But the problem is with open and notorious. How do you openly notoriously convey property, right? That's in your living room. So it's not the continuity that gets you there. It's the open and notorious factor that gets you there. Now, if someone puts gallery, puts a piece of art on display in a gallery, that's probably open and notorious. Right? So the continuity isn't the big issue. The continuity is whether it's the big issue is whether it's open and notorious.
So it's still the same rules.
Yeah.
For adverse possession.
Yeah. So in other words, it's hard to actually dispossess a chattel if you can't prove it was open and notoriously displayed. But you don't need the discovery rule to get there. What makes O'Keefe difficult is that she made absolutely no effort to even find out whether it was being displayed, and it was. Chester?
So all those discovery rules match majority in certain cases, will they use it depending on, like, on a case-by-case basis, like, depending on the material that was stolen, the property that was stolen?
I don't think they'll use the discovery rule. I think they'll use what Robert asked about. They'll say it wasn't open and notorious, therefore the clock never started. But you get to the same destination, right? You get to the same result. If it's not notorious, it doesn't matter if the clock starts, you don't get adverse possession. Make sense?
Is there any similar cases about art being stolen for adverse possession since this case?
I can check later, not off the top of my head.
Just to see like what they did.
Yeah, I can check later. Not off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are. Generally, stolen art is a very prominent issue. This comes up a lot with World War II and a lot of stolen art by Nazis and trying to recover it. And it's often very difficult to trace the provenance of who owned what. A lot of art dealers are not quite honest, and they'll sell a painting and say, "Oh, where'd you get this from?" I won't tell you. Okay, good. They'll just double the price. But this is a fairly important area of the law that's not governed by adverse possession. There actually are a lot of statutes that govern recovery of stolen art. There are international treaties about recovery of stolen art. So there's things much more important than adverse possession to get stuff back. What else? What else? All right, oh yeah.
Sorry,
But
so you said the three things that changed with the minority is it eliminated the old continuity rule, allowed tacking for adverse possession, there was something else?
It shifted the burden. So the three things that the majority did here was that they instituted this discovery rule, they shifted the burden to the plaintiff, and they permitted tacking between two different parties who were possessing this painting. I think those are three, right? Yeah. Anything else?
So tacking isn't generally allowed?
Generally with chattels, no, but here they said it was. Let me sum up a bit. So the topic of adverse possession, we already have our four elements, which we've done before. You have your entry, your open and notorious, you have your continuous, and you have your state of claim of right. But even within that, you have certain nuances. We discussed today what happens when there's a disability. If a disability exists at the outset of the tacking, the clock never starts. If a disability accrues after the entry, the clock keeps ticking. And we also know that with tacking, you cannot put together disabilities. You can't put one after the other. However, if two people want to squat, one for 5 years, the other for 5 years, if they're in primitive contract, they have a relationship, you can tack those years together. So as you can tell from the questions we did earlier, counting becomes important. And knowing when the 10-year clock runs, and by the way, an exam, I will always give you the length of time. You don't have to memorize that. I'll give you the number of years. So it will almost certainly be 10 years to make it easy. Because students can't count, 10's easy, just add an extra digit to the beginning. But you have to know when to count your deadline. All right, anything else? Nope. That clock is slow. Oh, I'm sorry. The clock is 2 minutes slow. I'm going to fix it now. Anything else? You're all dismissed. Thank you. I was going to fix that clock.